Yo, what's up guys, we are back again for the Shiunji Family chapter 64. We got a bombshell of information dropped on us, and yeah, I'm really excited to see how this series is going to progress. As you know, this series is made by the same person who makes Rent-a-Girlfriend, and it is harem slop, but we are going in a good direction. The author can write. With that being said, let's just hop straight into the chapter. Basically, off the last chapter, Kotono was getting harassed, kind of stalked or whatever, by some weird creepy old dude, and basically he goes and says that the real father of Minami and Shion is here, right? And they want to talk. Starting from this chapter, we are back at the house and the children are talking and discussing what just went down, right? You know, Oka is being very vocal like she always is, and Seiha is trying to logically think her way through this whole situation. Seiha is basically saying that it does seem like a very realistic thing what's going on right now. Like, since their whole family secret got exposed, it might be better if, you know, Minami and Shion went back with their original families just for safety measures. Oka really doesn't like this idea, doesn't like what's going on, but yeah, their conversation continues. Shion ends up talking, saying, it doesn't really matter what that guy is saying. Without any proof, we're not gonna know how serious he really is. And basically he's suggesting that all the family members should go to school together just for protection, right? Arata is being quiet during this entire time. He is kind of bearing the weight of, you know, his actions right now. His decision to defend Bonri in that situation, it was the correct decision to make, but, you know, these are the consequences of it, which, you know, he didn't really sign up for, but yeah, you know, he's not feeling the best in this situation. So yeah, that's essentially that whole day. The next day, they all do go to school together. They're just all walking together and they're just chatting a little bit. They're still a little bit on edge, a little bit uneasy, and there's like a little flirting going on. It's just, that's what the series is. Sooner or later, this creepy dude, right, that was from last chapter, shows up behind them, right? And he says, hey, it seems you're all together. You know, all the kids are very surprised, very shocked, you know, very alarmed because they think this guy is dangerous, right? They don't know anything about this guy. They don't know who he is or anything, right? But this guy goes and tries to, not really explaining himself, but he goes and starts talking, saying, you're really acting standoffish, aren't you? This is only your second time meeting your real dad. Ever since then, you never contacted me once. Isn't that right, Minami, Shion? And then we get a panel of Minami and Shion, and they look, you know, very frightened, or I don't even know the right word, right? He does continue his whole monologue, but I do want to talk about this a little bit, right? So, because I didn't go back and reread the part of, I think, the Kobe trip where Minami and Shion went and visited their actual family, I thought it was just Shion who did, but apparently both of them did, and they have met this guy before. However, everything happened off screen. We didn't see anything, any of their interactions together. So, you know, I kind of assumed that, hey, it wasn't really that big of a deal, and we didn't really get any information about that. But we now have that this guy is very important in the story. And yeah, essentially, I'm just gonna wrap it up. You can read the chapter if you want to, but essentially he's saying, oh, you guys grew up to be such heartless people, but he's pleased on the way that his, you know, blood and flesh, you know, developed, I guess. And I was saying that they became like handsome or beautiful. I don't, it's kind of weird. But yeah, essentially this guy is the biological father of Minami and Shion. This guy is really creepy, to be honest with you. Yeah, he just, I don't know, he just keeps saying weird stuff like, for the true father of these two, I think a bit of gratitude and sincerity should be shown. And yeah, I don't know, it's just a very awkward, weird situation. You know, the kids are in a very stressful environment right now, and they have some kind of weirdo, you know, talking to them, and they thought this guy was dangerous. However, he does go and say that I'm not trying to hurt you all, but he just wants to talk to their father. So I'm assuming that's what's gonna happen next chapter or in the upcoming chapters, because their father said that he was coming home from a business trip early because of what was going on. And why is he saying this? He's saying this because, you know, he doesn't want his precious daughter's name to be tarnished. So to me, it does seem like he wants to take back Minami at least, if not both her and Shion. And he's going to try to talk to the father of all of the kids, right? To try to make this happen. As Oka is already kind of, you know, hostile right now, she's like in a very defending or territorial state right now. She starts lashing out on this guy, saying, you have no proof, no evidence, you know, you need to get away from us. But then the guy goes and says something crazy. The craziest thing that we've heard all series long, besides that they're all adopted and they all like each other, is that if you want proof that I'm her real father, you could always try asking that person. Everyone is kind of confused. They're like, what person are you talking about? And he goes and says, they should be in your house right now, and you can get a testimony from them. He then starts to walk off and says, anyways, let your dad know we'll meet again soon. Until then, prepare yourself. Very cryptic, very ominous, very looming. I don't know how I feel, but I don't really like his character, to be honest with you. You know, we just didn't really get any interaction between like him and the kids when they went, you know, on their trip and they first met him. So to me, it's kind of like, I don't really care too much about this guy. You know, maybe if like Shion and Minami met him and, you know, he was super nice, super caring, that would be a whole different story. Like, I feel like that would bring a whole different light to his character, right? But here it just seems like he's very, I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe he turns out to be a really good character and maybe the dad really likes him. But yeah, essentially he just walks off and all the kids are not starstruck, but like stunned, right? They just don't know what to say. They just stopped in their tracks. But yeah, after this whole incident happened, we cut back to the house, but it's not the kids, right? It's the two maids, or there might be more, but one of them doesn't stay there. One of them is like an in-house maid. And they have like a little conversation, a little back and forth before the other one goes back in for the night. And their conversation goes like this. Still, it's amazing you work as a live-in maid. How long has it been? About 16 years, I say. You know, the one who's leaving and says, oh, wait, are you serious? And she says, in that case, do you ever think of the siblings as your own children? And the live-in maid says, yes, I would say so. And then we see the maid who, you know, is staying at the house, shut her door and take her case off of her phone. And what's in there, it is a little photo, right? And what's this photo of? It is of Minami and Shion. And that is the end of the chapter. So the maid that was kind of caring for them, I wouldn't say she's the closest thing to a mother figure other than Bonnery that they have in the house for all the kids. And she's basically been serving them, you know, for the past 16 years. So what I'm getting from this chapter is that something went down. Maybe that creepy guy and, you know, the maid, or, you know, Shion and Minami's actual biological mother owes the Shiunji family something, or it could be blackmail, could be anything. And now she's, you know, working there. She's working as the maid there. And she hasn't told, you know, the kids that, you know, she is their actual mother. It's been a really long time since I've seen any of this kind of trope in any type of manga for a very long time. Because usually it doesn't really happen all too much. You know, it's usually more like, I wouldn't say medieval, but akin to like shonen. And then there's like powers and all that type of stuff. That's usually where I see this kind of thing happening the most. But it is a very cool thing to see happening here. Nothing new, just very alarming, very shocking. And I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out with the development of the series, the development of these characters. You know, it just gets me really excited for what's going to happen with the other children as well. Like, if this case happens to be something crazy, like, oh, you know, it's like blackmail, or like they owe like a crazy debt to the Shiunji family, like what could be happening with all the other kids? You know, that could stir up a whole thing. Maybe the dad's evil. We don't know, right? We don't know what's going on there. But it also could be some heartwarming thing where the maid and that, you know, old dude couldn't afford to raise Minami and Shion, and maybe they're friends with Kaname Shiunji, and he agrees to take them in. But we'll just have to see. At this point in the series, we don't really know what the father of the Shiunji family, we don't know his real goals, intentions. All we know is that, you know, he has a successful business, and it seems like he wants to make Arata like the here to everything. But yeah, I am really excited to see a series that has the potential to develop more interpersonal relationships rather than just be a straight, you know, harem slot. Because to be honest, this series isn't the most comedic, I would say. Like, if you're gonna put it on the list of like different harem genre manga that you could be reading or things that have come out recently, it falls more on like the drama and like action side, but rather than more of just like the, you know, ecchi harem side. So yeah, that's why I do continue to read this series. I think it does have a decent progression of story, definitely better than the author's other work. You know, if you know Rent a Girlfriend, bro, just like, you should also rethink your life decisions. But yeah, with that being said, that is this week's chapter. I am a little bit late. I apologize for that. But yeah, we are back in action. I will be covering Lemon soon. But yeah, that's really about it. If you want to stay up to date with everything that I'm reading, or if you want to suggest anything that I should be reading or covering, because I do read a lot of stuff, definitely let me know down in the comment section. And yeah, subscribe and like. That's really about it. So I'll see y'all.